All right, Math 2, Unit 6, Section 0, Transformation Notes. So hopefully transformations are a review, but just in case we want to go over them. So for starters, there's a little bit of an easier way and a harder way to do these, and I'm going to show you the, I think, easier way to do them. It takes a little bit longer to do it, but I think it's a little bit easier to see. So for starters, the translation is 4 units left and 4 units down, and we're going to take those 3 points. So they're calling this a figure, so we're going to graph these 3 points, and I'm going to label them. So first I'll go to 0, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be I. Then J is over 2 and up 5. Here's J. And then K is over 4 and up 2. So there's that, and here's our shape. Okay? Now, I think the easier way to do this, that might take more time, is to graph it first, and then we just count over. And we're going to find a different way to do it in a minute, but this is the way we're going to start off doing it. So I'm going to take I, and I'm going to count 4 units left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 units down, 1, 2, 3, 4. And here I have I prime. The new letter, the new point, has a prime after it, and the prime is that little tally mark. J will move left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 4 as well. There's J. And then K will do the same thing. K prime. And then we can fill in the blanks, or fill in the lines, and there we are. The shapes should be congruent. They should be equal. They should be the same. Oh, I forgot a little prime next to my J. There we are. And our actual answer is the orange figure there. All right, number 2. Translate 3 units left and 6 up. So for starters, we need to graph this. We're at 0, -5 for R. Here's R. -1, -4. Here's S. 1, -1. Here's T. And then U is right here. So here's our shape. Kind of trapezoid looking shape. All right, translate 3 left, 6 up. I'm going to write that as 3 left, 6 up so that I remember. So for each point, I just do this, and it just takes forever to do. Oh, it's 3 left, not 6 left. 3, there we are. All right, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to be S prime. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For R, there's R prime. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's T prime. And then U will do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's U prime. And we can draw our shape. And we're done. All right, let us look on to number 3. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do it without graphing the original one. So one way that we could write this piece here, the 1 unit right, well, that's going to be dealing with, if we have points, that's going to be dealing with the x side of it, right? And moving to the right is going to make it bigger, so this is going to be x plus 1. And then 3 units down, that's going to take our y and subtract 3, so y minus 3. So one way that we could write this is we could say, well, I'm just going to rewrite my I. I is 0, 2, and I will turn into, I prime will be, well, I'm going to take 0 plus 1, which is 1, and 2 minus 3, which is -1, right? I took this number and plugged it in there, and I took this number and plugged it in there. So let's do that for all of these. Let's go H. H is 4, 3, and H prime is going to be, well, I'm going to take that 4, and I'm going to plug into that blue highlighted piece. 4 plus 1 is 5. 3 minus 3 is 0. G is 2, -2. G prime is going to be, well, I take this 2, and I plug it in up there. 2 plus 1 is 3. And then -2 minus 3 is -5. So I need to graph these 3 points now. So I'm going to have I is at 1, -1, or I prime, excuse me, I prime. H prime is at 5, 0. And then G prime is at 3, 1, 2, 3, -5. And then we can draw our shape. I'm going to use orange. There's our shape. Number 4. G prime. I'm going to try to do some of that in my head. So last time I kind of wrote out that our formula right there. I'm going to try to do some of that in my head. 1 unit left, that's going to be x minus 1, getting smaller. 3 units down, y minus 3. So for G prime, I'm going to take my 0 here. I'm going to plug in there, and I get -1, right? Because I take 0 minus 1. For this 1 here, I'm going to plug it into the y, so I'm going to have 1 minus 3, which is -2. For f prime, I'm going to take my 3 and plug it in, so I'm going to have 3 minus 1, which gives me 2. 4, I'm going to plug in, I'm going to have 4 minus 3, which gives me 1. And then lastly, E prime, 4 minus 1 is 3, 0 minus 3 is -3. So I can graph those. G prime is at -1, -2. Here's G prime. F prime is at 2, 1. F prime. E prime is at 3, -3, so that's going to be right here. And I'll use orange to draw my shape. All right, not too terrible. Number 5. Now another way that you can do this would be to go here. Let's look at just W to start off with. W is going to be at 1, 0, so I'm just going to put a dot there. I'm not going to label it or anything. And now I'm just going to count. I'm going to count 4 units left and 1 unit up. 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1. And that's going to be W prime. And then over 2, up 4 for X, so it's up there. I count 4 units left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 unit down, there's X prime. Y is normally at 4, which is right here. And I count 4 units left and 1 unit up, and I get right there. Now, I don't really care how you decide to choose to do these problems. I just want them to be right. So you can do it any of these ways. I'm going to do this way just one more time because I think it's pretty fast. Number 6. Reflection across the x-axis. Ooh, that one's kind of different. Now, we might not remember, but reflection across the x-axis means that you're going to take your point xy and you're going to make it -x, y. Oh, excuse me, -yx. I'm so sorry. X and -y. All right, let's look at this graph and talk about this. So if we had a point up here, this is at 5, 5.
Mr. Brazel, would you please go to your classroom? Mr. Brazel, to your classroom.
This right here is the x-axis. And if I were to reflect over the x-axis, I would take this here, and I would rotate it down, and it ends up being down here at 5, -5. So we can kind of see the thing that changes is the y. It changes from positive to negative. For this one, let's go ahead and just graph all 3 of these points, and then we can flip them over the axis. So we're at 2, -3. This is P. Q is at 3, -1. And let me write that a little bit different spot. There, I'll write Q there. And then R is at 4, -2. There's R. So here's my shape. Whenever I rotate it across the x-axis, they're going to stay vertically in their same lines, right? So the Q is going to stay in this still the same line. So it's 1 unit away from the axis. It's going to be 1 unit away from the axis again. So there's going to be Q prime. R is 2 units away, so it's going to be 2 units away. P is 3, right? 1, 2, 3, and there's P prime. And there's our new shape. whenever we reflect over an axis, if you have this printed out on paper, mine's on my iPad, so I can't do this, but if it's on paper, you could fold it over that x-axis. You could fold it over this line right here, and they would line up. And they should line up perfectly, but since we're not perfect artists, they wouldn't line up perfect. But that, if we did that with a computer, that would be what happened. All right, number 7. All right, another reflection on the x-axis. Now, this one, I'm going to try to do the method up here, where I kind of just swapped the y value. So notice that the x stayed the same, the y went to negative. The y started positive and went negative. So I'm going to have to make this x negative y. All right, and I'm going to write all those down on the left. So I'm going to have r prime. My x stays the same, negative 2, but my y switches signs. So here it's a positive 2. It's going to turn into a negative 2. S prime is going to be negative 1, and then I'm going to have a negative 5 because it was positive and I swapped that. T prime, well, it starts off as 4 in x. The y is 5, and so it's going to be a negative 5. And then U prime, I have 3, and negative 0 is 0, right? I'm grabbing these numbers from right up here. All right, so let's graph these points. So r prime is at negative 2, negative 2. Here's r prime. S prime is at negative 1, negative 5. T prime is at 4, negative 5. And U is at 3, 0. U prime. Well, U and U prime are there. So let me draw my lines. All right, there's my shape. All right, number 8. All right, this one is just one of them that we shift left and up. There's lots of different ways they can do it. I'm going to choose to find the point and not, well, I'll just choose to graph them all and then I'll move them all. We'll do it that way. So W is at negative 1, negative 2. So here's W. X is at negative 1, 0. There's X. Y is at 3, negative 3. And Z is at 0, negative 5. So here's our shape. And I'm not sure if I talked about this already, but if you graph the original and then you graph the new shape, they should be equal. They should be the exact same thing, just kind of shifted, right? If I have my phone laying on my desk like I do right now, and I take my phone and I slide it over a couple inches, it's still the same shape. That's all we're doing with this. We're taking this and we're sliding it to the left and up. So I'm going to look here at 1 unit left and 5 units up. I'm going to take my x and I'm going to go 1 left and 5 up. So there's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here is x prime. W is going to do the same thing. It's going to end up right here. Y is going to do 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's y. And then Z is going to end up right here. C prime. So we can draw our new shape. And there we are. We should be able to see that they are the same shape. If we were to cut them out, both out with scissors, we could lay them perfectly over each other. All right, that's all.